Welcome everyone to a Universal Citizens live webcast. Today I'm joined by Chris Chappelle, and David Ellis will be here in just a moment. He is caught in traffic. Haha. Chris, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very well. I hope you're well too.
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Today we're here to talk about Qigong. There are so many different forms of Qigong, and just before the show we're starting, we wanted to give people like a quick introduction or an example, because there are many Qigongs that are modern made within the last 10 or 20 years, where just creations of a modern world where some people have hybrided different teachings. But let's define what Qigong is.
Okay. Well, we do live in an age now where hybridization becomes a possibility, and with the internet, what's happening is that, and this is happening in China. Anyone and his grandmother is inventing a Qigong. So you have two different, within Qigong. So Qigong is a system of energetic body work. It also involves psychological process and mental focusing. And there are lineage-based systems that hark back to an older age through families, usually through families. Through like sometimes martial arts lineages, and then sometimes through health lineages. So doctors who'd been practicing Qigong in their families for generations. So this, the term, it's good to point out that Qigong, the term, as we know it now, this Qigong term, is a modern term. It was coined in 1956, and actually by the founder of this system. He was a martial arts master, a healing master, and also a meditation master. And he's very, very famous in China. His name was Hu Yaozhen. And Hu Yaozhen, he had the first Qigong clinic in 1956, and was the first to be blessed, along with some other masters, to come openly and teach Qigong, primarily for the health of the Chinese people, because their health was in a very, very bad way. And of course, that was just about the time when the famine kicked in. So Qigong is a modern term for older systems of internal work. So there are martial, meditative, and there are health. So those three things.
So we're going to talk about Qigong or Qigong for health, sports, and other things. Let's really get into a way that will help people can understand the difference between Qigong for wellness, Qigong for martial arts. Let's get a little separation of how those work.
Okay, so pretty much Qigongs that come through the martial traditions. Now you have, within those traditions, you have like two aspects. One is what's called hard Qigong. Now hard Qigong or external Qigong basically works the limbs very strongly. And the idea is to create a lot of energy through stretching the limbs and using certain calisthenics and breathing and holding, sometimes breathing with holding, and breathing and visualization sometimes. So and then you have the opposite scale. You have what's called the internal systems, the soft systems. Now the soft systems were propagated by arts such as Tai Chi Chuan, Xing Yi Chuan, which is based on the 5 elements, and Bagua Zhang, which is based on the Bagua, which is the Book of Change. So there are those two traditions of hard and soft in the martial traditions. And then you have the health traditions. Now, then you get in the health traditions, you've got things like there's only a few very, very, very ancient Qigongs. One is 5 animal frolics. One is 6 healing sounds. And And the famous Badwa Jin, which is really quite simple is a simplistic but very strong 8 movement system. And so that health lineage. And then you've got the meditation lineage. Now, the meditation lineages involve sitting practices. So the Qigongs that would have been used for there would be things to do, like in yoga, you sit and you loosen off the body, use certain postures. And then that would be a Qigong to support your meditation. And in fact, all Qigong can support meditation.
Can Qigong be done for people in wheelchair or people that have disabilities?
Yeah, Qigong has a wide-ranging potential, because if someone's knowledgeable about the movement and knows the system really well, then what you can do, you can modify a system. You can modify things for people. So, I mean, I've taught people in wheelchairs before, and I've had students of mine who've taught elderly in chairs who actually then got up out of their chair when they got bored, which is interesting. Yes, they can be taught. Things can be modified, and you can still work you can work the core of the body and the channels of the legs. You can still exercise in wheelchairs. That's not a problem. Or someone that's chair bound or can't walk very well and can't stand for long periods of time, you can start them with sitting work. And also, to be fair, there are lying systems that lie done prone, sitting, standing, and moving. So there are 4 aspects that connect with Taoist philosophy. So these 4 aspects of life: lying down, sitting, standing, and moving. And so Qigong can be modified, and they're all interrelated. And for example, I have a friend in Barcelona who's I taught her Qigong many years ago. She's a physiotherapist, and she's developed through her work, she's developed a system for people who are really chronically ill who are lying down. So she developed that system, which she's promoting in Barcelona.
So there are a lot of myths out there about Qigong. Some, people have heard that they can get hurt, or if they're doing fire practices and they're not ejaculating, things can go on, because that's a significant part of understanding one's meteoric rise in energy.
Yeah, this is a very interesting. There's an interesting debate around this, really, which is that yes, there are it's not the methods, like in terms of like the hard methods, were what are called the packing methods, where you're trying to tense the body, then relax it. So using quite gross, which is from an internal point of view, is quite gross. Use external means to try and stretch the whole body. And if someone has some physical imbalances in their body, or internal imbalances, they can be exacerbated. And especially if people use visualizations, this could be problematic, because visualizations can take you out of your felt sense. And if you're not stable in your body and comfortable in your body, and then you're forcing your body, like in any kind of, and this is why lots of even normal exercise goes wrong, is that people end up packing energy in blood, or stagnating and contracting where they should be relaxing. And there's not a balance between relaxation and movement. Now, the problem with this is that you then start to trap energy inside your own system. Now, if you've got some emotional issues, most of us have, and some psychological issues, we all have some issues. Now, if you were practicing in a very hard way, then what can happen is that you can push these things inside of yourself and repress them. So you can, and also energy, in terms of the energy mechanics, is the energy of your body, instead of grounding and then releasing from you, then it gets stuck, and then it can cause problems. So you can get, and the American Medical Association has in its the American Psychoanalytic Association, they have their journal. They've actually named a thing called Qigong psychosis, and it's very well known in China that some people shouldn't do certain types of Qigong, or certain types of very, very strenuous exercise, certainly visualizations. So this is the thing about the soft Qigong, or the one that's more influenced by Taoism. You see, the hard Qigong is influenced a lot by Buddhism. So the soft Qigong, the benefits of that are that you can actually safely open up the body in a progressive, gradual manner. And kind of like, people kind of want the fireworks. They want the magic. They want the energy, and they want the supercharged energy. It comes at a price. If you push things like that, it comes at a price, because it can really cause problems psychologically for you. So yes, there are problems, but with a good teacher, then you'd guide people. So I can give you examples, but
some people have ab reactions because whether it's their personal understanding of the training, but there are certain people who shouldn't do certain postures in yoga too. And what you're trying to say is you need a teacher and you need someone to help you go through. And when you put on retreats, you help people go through these journeys of softly unwinding, softening, opening up. And this coming November 9th to the 11th, I believe, you're going to be having a retreat.
October the 11th to the 14th.
October 11th to the 14th. I had it all backwards. October 11th through the 14th. That is going to be in Barbados, featuring the Unified Health Systems Clinic also that's going to be a part about it. So we're pairing together the Qigong Healing Master scenario, standing practice, mindfulness, meditation, flotation takes, hyperbaric chambers, pulsed electromagnetic therapy, Qi machines. We're really giving you the entire package. That's right. So everyone that's listening to this show today, you guys are getting a special opportunity to be on the first end of the people that are going to come in and experience one of these amazing Qigong mindfulness, wellness, meditation retreats that is going on. Chris, let's talk about what people can get out of, let's say, a day of practice. Like if they come to your first day, what is the practice going to look like for them? And is it for everyone at any age, any size, any shape?
Okay, so just to put anyone at ease, if anyone's thinking they might want to come along on the retreat, or they're going to come along on the retreat, I've been doing retreats for over 20 years, and you know the thing is, you can modify the teachings to the individual. You can pitch to the people in the room. So generally, what I do is I get to know the people who are there, and what I also do is I get to observe physically.
It is November 11th through the 14th.
It is.
October. It is November. I was right.
It is.
I was off by 2 days, but.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. My mistake.
It's okay.
Yeah. So what you can usually expect on a first time retreat is a slow introduction to how to connect with your body within the upright plane. So how to basically stand in a line so that you can start to release energy from your body. You know, you can release stagnant energy. So the stuff that I was talking about that gets trapped, superficial tensions, deep tensions. So my job really is to facilitate you to be able to go inwards so that you can heal your body from the inside, discover where you have connectivity, or create a new connectivity. Already it's an old connectivity back to the past when you had more connectivity. Is to reconnect and then reestablish homeostasis in your body, which means deeper breathing, neuroplasticity. So you start to activate nerves in your body which have kind of become dormant, and then to explore from the standing practices, explore the range of movement. So the whole point of the retreat is actually to take your body in a very relaxed way, because relaxation is a key to practice, to learn how to actively relax. It's what I call active relaxation. It's not passive. You learn to be active. So you're actually quite responsive to relaxation, and you actually apply it into the movement. So this is kind of if I just add something here, this is creating a deeper blood flow in the body is going to give you health. And I tend to teach very practically from a Western perspective. I'll talk about Qi, no problem, but I really come from the perspective of, because within Chinese medicine, blood is your Qi. Your
That's
nerves are your chi. Those things are. So if they're functioning well, energetically, you're going to be well. So the first day is to get people to actually establish a base from which they can fly from. They can then launch from that into movement, but knowing the principles of how you integrate your mind and body. And it's actually, the thing is, the principles are really simple. And usually the simple things are the most difficult to do, which is to relax.
And relax. Stand,
and
relax.
And relax, and relax.
And then discover what relaxed really feels like in the many layers of, oh, I haven't been this relaxed in a long time. And then layers beyond that say, wow, I'm not relaxed. All those other layers that I pulled back were just illusions, until you really get to that point where the body goes.
Yep, absolutely.
In each breath, there is an expansion and a contraction that is natural, ever evolving. People that experience meditation, when you come out of it, you sometimes have the euphoric feeling. Oftentimes when you're doing Qigong, the euphoria comes after you're done. Okay.
Oh, it can happen it can happen before. The key is to have it happen before, because this is where there is a huge link between Qigong and meditation. Mm-hmm. It has to be fair, because if you're doing a Qigong properly, when I mean properly, I don't mean that, what I mean is that there's two aspects within Taoism which are really important. One is stillness, Wuji. One is Tai Chi, which is movement. So those two things. And what happens is that you don't want one without the other. You need the stillness to help your movement. You need movement to amplify your stillness. And it sounds esoteric. It's not. It's actually very, very practical. So, and my job is to help you understand how to find stillness and then to create movement. Mm-hmm. And as you said, when you stand still and when you're still, it's just like meditation. You start to become aware of things that were off radar, things that you didn't quite feel. Mm-hmm. And this is a big thing, Andrew. Mm-hmm. You can't change what you can't feel. And the other thing about the body, is the body doesn't lie to you. If you pay attention, your mind can trick you. It always does. Unless you become very, very good at meditation. But the body can't trick you. So that's why in Taoism, the body is a critical support for a smooth practice if you wanted to further your meditation practice, or equally, you can apply these things to your chosen sport. In fact, a side effect of doing Qigong is it will spill into your sport, because your awareness of how you move becomes amplified.
Mm-hmm. So how will these types of practices and retreats help people that have cancer or are recovering from cancer? Okay,
interesting. I'm trying to think if I had anyone I have had someone who was recovering from cancer on my retreat many years ago. In fact, he came back to retreat this year for a refresher. And obviously in recovery it's different than if people actually actively have cancer. Now there's a whole topic on cancer, and it has to be understood that Qigong, again, there are lots of claims made out there that Qigong can cure cancer. And what I clearly say is it can help in your in your treatment and your recovery from cancer, 100%. But it has to be, and this is well known within Qigong masters that I've trained with, have the same opinion. It has to be, you have to then look at other factors. You have to then look at your lifestyle, and you look at your diet and things like this. It's not a one-stop fix.
It's not just to check your astrological chart and move on. Cancer's cancer. It's going to be life-threatening, and it can give a lot of challenging scenarios to terminal illness. Has its own effect on the mind. The chemo, the drugs, has its own effect on the body, and then the mind, the body, and the spirit are all complex pieces that come together. In Qigong, all of these practices are a way to help stop what I call defractalization. Instead of being a single fractal, you're many different fractals of expression. The mind's dealing with the terminal illness, the body's dealing with the medicine and the drugs, and the spirit's trying to keep life going. And when we can tap into some of these points or energy points. Some are called inner wellspring points that just flow full of energy. And we're able to do the movements accurately, correctly, and in a stillness state, we can achieve awareness through a state of silence, an awareness that the body's wisdom is stepping forward and giving you intuition in between the movements. So let's help people understand the complex part of mind, body, and spirit, and how Qigong can balance those complexities.
Okay. In terms of cancer or in
terms of somebody with a terminal illness?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. Very interesting question. The spirit, the mind, and the body, and cancer. Okay. I think it's helpful for people to have a whole range of interventions or activities that they do or approaches they take if they want to heal from anything serious. And in terms of this, you mentioned stillness, and I mean, I've just had a close friend of my family he died of cancer, and the thing is, in terms of spirit, you need support. You need to have some power of self-reflection. But I think the biggest thing, and this is just going away from the whole Qigong thing, you have to, you got to be prepared to change, because cancer is a state it's a state that you're locked into. And, you know, the etiology, the what happens with cancer is that a cancer cell is a cell that lacks oxygen. It's basically alcohol. It's a sugar cell. It's acidic. It's not me talking. This is Otto Warburg, who won the Nobel Prize for working out what cancer was. And that was his description, which means it's a toxicity of the body. So one, you've got to deal with toxicity. Two, you've got to deal with your mental state. And things like self-loathing, negative self-talk, feelings of helplessness, depression, being in a constant dialogue and worry and fear. Those states act upon the body so that your immune system doesn't heal. And as we know, the body is it's a self-healing system. And actually, what you're doing is you're putting your body into balance. So in terms of Qigong, you're recreating a balance. And it's kind of almost symbolic, in a sense, a felt sense symbolic aspect of Qigong. And certainly within standing practices, which is to align your body, to allow gravity to go through your body and you not holding through fear, holding through tension, and to allow and use intelligent posture and structure, breathing, deepening the breathing, and integrating that with movement and stillness. So static practices, moving practices. But the key is that what governs your state a lot is, in terms of spirit, is that you can't elevate your spirit when you're stuck in worry, and let's put it this way, stuck in your head. So the Chinese call this scattered shen. So the mind's jumping here, is jumping there, is completely occupied, and that will bring in the mind and body and that spirit to realize your connection to, in some way, to everyone else and everything. Then you do need to, or it would be useful to look at the mind. It's, you know, within that process. Now, the aspect of Qigong is you come through the body to get to the mind. So what you're doing is that it's not like looking at your mind. There's different aspects of how our consciousness and the mind works. And it's just a huge nefarious topic, the mind and consciousness. But what you can do is the body itself is incredibly intelligent. And if you give it the opportunity, it will heal. And Qigong is an opportunity to heal. It's a gentle form of movement. It's subtle. So it's more on the craniosacral side of things. It's subtle. But also but I'm a big believer in that you can't just go one way, like subtle, and you can't just go extreme. So the thing is, you have to accept where you are right now. And that's the mind, accepting where you are right now, here now, this is it. Everything that's ever happened to me is because of cause and effects, things I've done, I haven't done. And by working with the body, you take the chatter, the busyness out of your head, and so you can stabilize in your body. And so I hope to, I mean, I've worked with, I'll talk about, I mean, the thing is, I had something quite amazing on a retreat once. And it was one of the reasons, because there's been many times in my career I wanted to just walk away, because I'm thinking, you know, because you hear all the sound bites about this Qigong to do this, Qigong to do that. Now, I'm a pretty much, I call myself an open-minded skeptic, but I'm a practitioner. I like to do things. I had a man come on my retreat who was brought by an acupuncturist. And the acupuncturist came along for company. He'd just come off, this old gentleman had just had a liver transplant. And my first thought was, oh my God, if he croaks on my retreat, I'm gone. I'm toast. I'm never going to work again. And he was doubled up. He couldn't breathe. He was doubled up. He actually looked green. And I just thought, wow, what am I going to do with this guy? Because he looked so ill. Anyway, it transpired. Now, and this is pretty much how it went. The acupuncturist was treating him, his acupuncturist, for obviously to help him to recover after the operation. And after the first day, he couldn't do a lot. I mean, he couldn't stand really well, but what I did was I would tweak his body to try and get some blood flow moving, get things moving. And he did very, very, almost like micro movements, like very, very small tracings of his body, micro movements, very gently. So the first day was a bit of a struggle. The second day, he was much more lively. To cut a long story short, it was like by day 3, his acupuncturist came to me and he said, I can't do what's happening to him right now with needles. He said, he can't, when he first came in the first night, he couldn't sleep at all. He actually sat in a chair. He sat in a chair all night and basically went to bed for an hour. The next night, he was in the bed for 3 hours or so, and then he was in the chair for the rest of the time. By the third night, he was virtually in bed all the night. His breathing got deeper. By the fourth day, he was sleeping all through the night. That was in 4 days of practice. So he'd kickstarted, his system had kickstarted. Something had kickstarted in him. To the point that on I think it was the 4th or 5th day, there was somebody walking into the park where I was teaching in the morning. And I didn't recognize this person. And I said to everyone, who's that? Who's that coming to the retreat? And they said, oh, that's, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He said, oh, what's his name? It was the guy who'd had the transplant. And he was walking. I can't tell you how he was walking. He was upright. He had a spring in his step, and he practiced the whole Qigong like as if he didn't have a problem. And his acupuncturist was amazed. I was amazed, because it's only when you work with more chronic cases you realize that if you get the mind and body, you get someone to engage. Well, one, someone has to want to heal. They have to want it. And 2, they've got to make the effort. And what's amazed me over the years is like people like him is you can get quite amazing results. That's all I can say. I mean, it's not a miracle. What it basically is actually, it's waking up the nerves. It's waking up the blood. It's actually getting things moving, because movement is life. And that was one example on a retreat that I had. And,
and stories like that are amazing. And then there are people that are stuck in, let's say, something like depression, and they don't have the same willpower or motivation with somebody with a terminal illness or a liver transplant. And I have had my own experience with many people doing Qigong. It's one of the most effective ways of beating depression when you allow yourself to truly have the meditation side of Qigong, the actual health and wellness part of it, with the stretching, the exercises, the positions, the movements, the stillness that comes with it, you can battle your depression day by day through discipline and hard work.
Well, I can give you my experience of depression.
Yes.
Because being a sufferer myself, although I was self-diagnosed when I was at ballet school, I was a classical dancer, I was training, and I was at the college, I was an insomniac, and which I never was before. But I was alone in London, and I was an insomniac, and I was trying to be something, and I suffered from depression. So it's pretty much what they call now bipolar, which is a term I don't like, which is like all or nothing, which is, it kind of fits. But from my research into what I was feeling, it seemed pretty much like I had what was called melancholia, melancholic depression.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what's depression? Depression is an implosion. And to be quite honest, it's to do with negative self-talk. I'm talking from my own experience. Negative self-talk, experiences that come to you which are withheld in your unconscious, number 2. They're also held within your body, number 3. And with depression, when I first came across standing, and when I actually got inspired when I started to research the structure of standing, we have depression as a posture. So depression has this collapse. You collapse into yourself, and
it constricts the blood, the vessels, the fascia, the muscles, the sinews. Yeah. Once there's a constriction, your body is running at a restricted level, and blood has to go through smaller holes, smaller vascular systems. Heart rate goes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. And the diaphragm. The big thing is the diaphragm, and the ribs will tighten, and the diaphragm will lock, and then it'll affect your digestion. It'll affect your colon.
Cascading effect.
Yeah, that's the mind acting on the body, so equally, you might not be depressed, but you might sit in an office for 30 or 25 to 20 years and do this, and you might become depressed, and some of that can be triggered by your posture. So that's the body acting on the mind.
But posture also represents a stopping of the dopamine release from having something good going on in your life too.
Yeah. Another thing with depression that's really interesting is something I say to people, and something is that when you have a tight abdomen, and I mean that's tight either through stress or tight because you've just done too many sit-ups. So, I used to do like 1,000 sit-ups a day when I was at ballet school, minimum. And but I actually do too much. So you have a locked diaphragm, your chest is collapsing with depression. And in fact, actually ballet does the opposite. So ballet will do this. And what you do is you open up, which is like in Qigong, you open up, and that opens up and you feel better. So that's why exercise can help people as well. So certain exercise can help you. But just understanding that when I first started doing standing Qigong practices, I would sometimes stand and I just feel like shit, thinking, negative self-talk, all that stuff going on. And then what amazed me was that I would stand for like 5 minutes, open up my diaphragm, and the feeling would lift. It would just dissolve. And I just thought to myself, what the hell? That's just, wow. And I didn't make the link. I didn't make the link until I stood still. I did not make the link that I had control of my emotional states through my posture. And so there is amazing benefits. Another thing, sorry to mention, is that once you open up the diaphragm, and if you can get some relaxation through your abdomen, you can have a strong core on the inside. You don't have to have six-pack abs. Okay, you don't have to look great. And to be quite honest, it's not healthy. Everyone has a six-pack. It's just under fat. Okay, so if you want a six-pack, just the fat goes, your six-pack's there. You don't have to beat your abdomen up to get a six-pack.
I say my six-pack's inside my cooler.
Yeah, Well, you're a cool guy, so I guess it's in the color.
So this direct link between emotions and posture is how consciousness entangles with our journey of living in life. And Qigong as a practice, be it meditative, the physical, or the emotional, or the part that goes with Chinese herbs that are connected to it too, like all those other things that we talked about. But that direct link between posture, constriction, determines how much control over the central nervous system our sympathetic and parasympathetic has. The vagus nerve is a deep part of our emotional connection too. And we are able to relax ourselves at the central nervous system level. We can let down from some of those fight and flight things that many people with PTSD suffer. How can PTSD be applied in healing with Qigong?
Look, the thing is, you can bypass your critical thinking and the negative self-talk by getting into the body. What people tend to do with exercise is they tend to act out their inner conflicts, get acted out in the exercise. In a Qigong or in any internal, Qigong in particular, but also this can be done in Tai Chi, although Tai Chi was a very serious fighting art. But in Qigong in particular, you can create the felt sense. Now, the thing is, when you can feel your feet, when you can really start to switch off down through your sacrum in the legs and get a sense of draining, is you basically, even a standing posture, and then bringing your attention down through your body and resting it in your body, resting it in your feet, breathing into the ground, breathing through your feet into the ground. Feel like you're breathing through your feet into the ground. Those things bring your energy down. Now, with encouragement, with a bit of guidance, once you start to feel, if you can change your state. Now, this is done waking, by the way. This is a waking change. You're not lying down, because you can do this with, using hypnosis and stuff and hypnagogic techniques. But the thing is, what you're doing, Qigong has this aspect whereby, and this is where I teach, and I say to my students, look, you really are, okay, don't read anything of the word hypnosis, because that's very much just misunderstood. But what you're doing is you're getting yourself into the healing state, the creative state, the state where things feel possible, where you touch stillness and calmness, a calmness within yourself. These are felt sense experiences. And the more you visit them, okay, the greater benefit it has. Now, PTSD, I did have someone who wanted to come and train with me last year who got PTSD. And I've met people with PTSD. So it's a hard thing. Is I like to talk from experience. So Shu Qigong can be applied to help people. And if you look at the work of Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote the book The Body Keeps the Score, he's kind of like making waves in the psychotherapeutic world, because he's had people with PTSD doing yoga, and I think some Qigong too, and basically working with the body. And all these clinical evidence points to the fact that when you use the mind, or when you talk about things, you pretty much keep yourself in this kind of a beta brainwave activity. But when you get into the body and you can start to work with the body, you start to slow down. And when you slow down, and of course you mentioned the vagus nerve, and that's a very hot topic at the moment. You can then stimulate the vagus nerve, but what you do is you get this deep sense of relaxation. That relaxation gives you the space, eventually, with some practice, and to then look at, step back from what's going on in your mind, and to get some resolution and allow things and allow yourself to let go. Now, that's not possible if you're wound up. So if you're just talking through things and you're still in a wound up state, then things aren't going to release. But the moment you get into the body, you can bypass. So in terms of PTSD, there's certainly the evidence is there for not just Qigong, but other body-based therapies for them to work with PTSD. Of course, everyone's different. So, but certainly there is the data there from Basil van der Kolk. And I'd recommend people read his book, The Body Keeps a Score, because of the research he did with Vietnam veterans and people who've had really bad abuse. And then there are changes that can be made. And they recommend highly that people have a body practice as well as any of the talking therapies or other recognized therapies.
See, a lot of people with PTSD actually have a variety of traumatic moments locked into their central nervous system that creates this repetition of an image, a sight, a feeling, something that can overwhelm the central nervous system and put them right back into adrenal gland fight, flight, and freeze. When one takes the journey of the martial into the meditative, back to the martial, they can learn to discover where the trauma lies in their body. Like a lot of PTSD people that I've worked with, they hold literally in their diaphragm or in their lung meridians, fright, stuck.
Yeah. That's a startle reflex.
Get it out of them.
They're stuck in this. Yeah,
they're stuck.
Andrew, they're stuck in the startle reflex.
Yes, and then there are others that are stuck in the fight, and then the other ones who are stuck in freeze.
Yeah. It's only so many directions we can go. We can either fight, get aggressive, go into flight, which is kind of like try and get away, and then the freeze. And you know what? Most people freeze.
Yes.
Because when it comes to it, you can't just constantly fight, and then you can't just keep running away. So the option left is freeze. And so that startle reflex, it gets stuck. And to get over that, you have to have, look, it's really, the thing is that there's a lot of self-loathing. There's going to be a lot of psychological stuff. And the fact is that you don't have to bring that up. That the thing is that,
breathe through it. That's what you can do. Breathe through it. That's the discipline part of controlling the body, but not influencing it out of ignorance.
Yeah. The thing is, it's you can't let go what you can't feel. So the thing is that, really freezing is an escape from feeling. It's a denial of feeling. It's I don't want to feel what I feel because it's too painful. So, So for sure that in terms of the creating some self-care, self-compassion, you have to do that, and that you can only do that in stillness. You can't just talk to yourself and go, I'm going to be nice to myself. I'm an okay person. I do things. I pat dogs and I help old ladies across the street, and I help wash people's cars. I'm a good guy. I'm a good woman. The fact is, everyone has these issues of lack of self-worth or feeling that they should be the ones that or even, and not sad to say this, but basically you can get locked into a thing whereby you do invite more problems for yourself, which then trigger the startle. So and try or trigger a fight, because at least if you're fighting, that you're alive and you feel something. So there's a bit of an addictive quality to those repetitions. So the thing is, bottom line is you have to, as corny as it sounds, you have to learn to love yourself. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on that. So, but everything's a work in progress, right? We're just a work in progress, and just see where we go. Yeah.
Work and love in progress.
Yeah. Work and love progress. love and light. Love and light.
So the other part of fight, flight, and freeze is after a while they live in a high adrenal gland state, and they can never really let down, which creates extreme lack of sleep, lack of dreams, which then the whole endocrine system begins to break down. And it shows up all these other types of bioelectrical malfunctions, that chemical misunderstanding of memories, so on and so forth. And the meditative side of martial, of the Qigong, can have a tremendous capacity to give you clarity in a fight, flight, or freeze moment, because you have been disciplined over some weeks of practice to emanate your peaceful energy versus I'm choosing fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze. And when you begin to regularly practice the inner and the outer, you can learn to, once again, take control of the body, not out of ignorance, or out of making something immediately relevant, which is what PTSD is. Something that wasn't relevant a microsecond ago is relevant now out of fight, flight, or freeze need, or adrenal gland response to the environment, because the stimulus in the environment is too much for them to take because they've been on overload for decades at time.
Mm-hmm.
And the practice, inner and outer, martial arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, all of those things, they all have their place for every human being, no matter what your religious denomination is. Peace and self-love need no religion or denomination to it.
Mm. Absolutely. If the shoe fits, I think anything can help you is valuable, as long as it, what you do isn't hurting other people, and that you help, and it actually helps you to feel more connected with the people. Then that's great, and picking something that's going to actually to ground you, right. Because getting under the ground and then breathing and relaxing and relaxation is huge. It's a huge thing, and it's no point. You can't just say relax to yourself and it's all going to magically go away. It's something you got to cultivate that, because we didn't come in tense. I mean, we would have certainly had some kind of like birth canal trauma, but we
like forceps birth or something like that.
There's traumatic births. There's all kinds of influences on us, and on that, the thing is, that there's many people walking around. They still walk around with birth trauma.
That's right. I encounter them all the time.
Never gets diagnosed, never gets looked at, it never acknowledged. I don't think the medical community acknowledged birth trauma. I think it's only in the alternative scene. Mm-hmm. That basically the organism can carry a shock from birth. I mean, it's logical that if you're born from a mother who's a heroin addict and for a heroin, you're going to suffer as a baby. You're really going to suffer because you're going to have withdrawals, and so so it doesn't mean you can't have trauma in the womb.
So let's move on to something how Qigong can help those that are sports, athletic minded, or professional sports player. And I want to bring this up because a lot of people in the audience, they see one side, the healing, the trauma side, but then there are those people who are on the peak and the top of their game, or those that are trying to get to the peak and the top of their game. And how can we make the inner and the outer practices help those people?
Okay. By identifying weaknesses. Sometimes you have to come outside of the box that you're in. Now, I'm going to quote a few things here. Opera, boxing, ballet, martial arts, football. I mean, real football, English football. That's a joke, by the way. So it's only hate mail.
There's probably nobody in this chat room that regularly watches football.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you watch American football, or type into the chat. No one.
I have a student watches American football. He loves it. He's always talking to me about how the biomechanics and the qigong of it, and what works, what doesn't work. The thing is that there's okay. Let's put it this way: qigong. Tai Chi is an advanced form of Qigong. Let's make this clear. It's an advanced form of energy work. That's what it is. And it was a high performance art. These guys they took challenge matches and they were taught the Imperial Guard of the Emperor. You don't hire people to do that unless they've got some bona fide skill. Now, so that's the origin of the martial traditions, which have that. Now, and it's actually within Qigong. The benefits of Qigong for athletes or any performer are that it can help. Again, it boils down to is that you touch on stillness, and by registering what's going on in your body, you can realize that you have weak links. And what you do is you train the weak links. You work on your weak links. Now, generally speaking, a lot of people work on their strengths. And you can go to I'll just give a really kind of a crass example, go to any gym where you've got serious bodybuilders, and you'll get people who proportionally just don't get it right. because you know why? Because they work their strongest thing. They get off on the strongest thing. They work their strengths. And the smart ones, the smart people that want to do that, which I'm not saying anything either way, the smart ones will work their weaknesses. So this is where Qigong comes in. If you become more intelligent, you become more analytical in a felt sense way. You can feel what's going on in your body. You can correct things. So if you're a sportsman and you can, we people have, biomechanical coaches. With Qigong, you can become your own coach in that respect. And I've worked with athletes. I've worked with golfers. I've worked with boxers. I've had really quite radical successes within sessions, basically because I just facilitate that they feel what they're not feeling. There's no good just saying, you're not doing that, do this. You have to help them engage and feel what is not moving in the correct way, in a biomechanically functional way. And that's very practical. Now, I'll tell you now, most Qigong out there, it wouldn't touch this. I studied my Tai Chi in depth, and I've cross-referenced it, and I've studied human anatomy, human dissection, and myofascial. I'm a qualified structural body worker. So the thing is, I got the felt sense energy side, and then I got the Western side, because there's no Western people. There's a lot of mistranslation, a lot of you have to know how the body works. And from my point of view, what really helped me was the fact that I had a professional career as a pro kickboxer briefly, then I had a ballet career. So, I mean, I did get into professional training and professional work. And in fact, my research into Qigong and into Tai Chi, it arose from the fact that I could feel something in myself that wasn't working, and I couldn't nail it. The Harley Street doctors in London, the specialists in movement and physio, they didn't spot it. I could feel it, they couldn't spot it. It affected my technique, and it wasn't technique. I had strength, I had flexibility, I had massive focus and intent to do something, but something wasn't with there was a weak link. And it's the weak link that I needed to find. And the weak link was me. So Qigong is a way of you finding where you are right now. And if you admit to where you are right now, and you can feel what's going on, you can change it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, and Tai Chi is not for old people. Let's put it this way. It's not this whole thing where it's just for old people. It's amazing for older people. The thing is, if you want to take up Tai Chi at an older age, you're only just going to get some health benefits. The fact is, if you take it up when you're younger, okay, you are going to supercharge what you do. You'll supercharge the connections, the myofascial connections. And if it's a really good Qigong, you will deeply stabilize things that need to be still, because there needs to be a lot of, and stillness is stability, by the way. Stillness is creating stability inside your body. When you're stable, when you're balanced, you can move well. And so the weak links are the things that knock your stillness. They knock your stability. And they're off radar. And sometimes you can feel it. This is the point I'm trying to make. You can feel it, but a physio or someone, or even a Western biomechanical person, they get to an impasse because they haven't got X-ray vision. So you have to develop a felt sense. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You develop your felt sense, and this is a good. If you find a good teacher and they've got a good felt sense, they'll feel what's not right in you. That's right. I mean, a good Tai Chi master will make small adjustments, and it will go right through your myofascial anatomy. You go right through to the core of the body, and it will tap into your energetic system.
That's right.
But that's not always on offer. Even people that can do that, they don't always do that, because it's very much remember these practices, they weren't done with 10,000 people in the park, or 100 people in the park, or 50 people, or 10 people. These practices were done, one person, one master, someone had experience who would pass it on to a disciple or pass it on to a family member or friends, and it would be a few people. Tai Chi was practiced with 4 people in a courtyard. You know, that was it. There was small, and that's why these arts were good, because they were very, very, how can I put it? Very focused. They weren't diluted.
And when one gets that supercharged ability, which is what a lot of the people that are athletic or trying to get into that athletic journey or on the pro athlete level, when they're able to incorporate some of these techniques and then these wisdom moments, and then the ability to have somebody that can help you see the subtleties of what's engaged and not engaged. Before you were talking about some people that you work with in the golfing things, and they can see a direct result by yards added onto their swing.
Okay. So I'll talk about the golf that I work with. There's a man called James Marshall, who almost made the major tours. He missed it by a fraction, and then turned into a golf coach. But his roommate went on to do all the major tours and compete against the major players. So he was a high level golfer, and he explained to me when I worked with him, I worked 4 hours with him, and what I did was I didn't try and change anything. I don't know golf, but what I do know is I know the body. I didn't change him. I basically pointed out, and then got him to feel, and then do some, and then make some swings. We're doing some drives. It was in my studio, and we did that. And so by doing that, we weren't really. There wasn't a technique. There is no real technique. The real thing is, it's being able to identify and help the person identify where that weak link is. And he went and he gave me a testimonial for this, and he went off and he went and tried it out when he was back in the golf course, and he put using his refined biomechanics, he put 20 yards on his shot. I wish he'd come back, because I reckon we could have put 50 yards on his shot easy. And then I have a colleague of mine, and someone I've traveled with, and we've gone to various teachers in China, and I'm his mentor, and I help him, and he helps me and supports me in our studies. And he has a young pro golfer called David Carey, I believe. And David Carey is a 21-year-old who just broke. I don't quite understand the technology, the wording of what he did, but he basically just broke a record at 21 as a young pro golfer. And he puts it down to the fact that of the smoothness and it helped in a big part by his Qigong practice with my colleague Jan Golden, who lives in Dublin. So the fact is that people can up their game, but like I said, you've got to be able to think outside the box. Some of the best people I know think outside the box. Thinking outside the box meaning that you try something, you don't dismiss something because it looks, and because Qigong can look, slow and fluffy and smooth, like nothing's going on. But the fact is, you're getting all the tension out of your body so you can access what? Your spine, your organs, your core. The core is your whole spine and your gut. And if you access the core, then that's where everything comes from. Your nerves, your organs, that's where the bulk of your energy comes from your core. It doesn't come from your arms and legs. And so you can do a hell of a lot with Qigong and these technologies.
So Qigong has one of these special benefits that when it's learned right can help you detox your colon. In my cosmology, your dreaming world lives inside your intestinal tract. That's also where 80% of your immune system is. When you access that spinal column, you access those organs, you get past the central nervous system's blockades of being in stillness. You are able to touch into that complex mind, body, and spirit as an entangled consciousness who's in stillness, who now has the journey as a practitioner into wellness. And it'll be your choice of the types of guided imagery, stillness factors, messages of self-healing and self-nurturing that you bring to yourself through the expression of discipline and practice that then begin to reflect a greater stillness in moments of harshness, or a stillness that can be accomplished even in the most obtuse of times, because one's making a conscious choice to take in the body wisdom, the spiritual wisdom, and the mental wisdom, and combine them into their own practice, which can be called Qigong, mindfulness training, all these other languages that can be attached to it. So, Chris, we've talked about Qigong. Now let's talk about this retreat and how some of these mindfulness practices all are going to work in the same thing, as well as the technology that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm presenting a classical set. I mean, I have a lineage in this system, and it's the Hunyuan set, and it's Hunyuan means primordial, and so that pretty much hints at what you're trying to get to, which is the deepest state of your being, to connect not just with yourself but to everything around you. Of course, the first step being to connect to yourself. So that there'll be, so within that, I'm going to be working on how to map the body, how to identify blockages, and then how to release them, which is the Qigong set. The moving part of the set is to facilitate that, which is to create a multi-directional movement. Because we tend to move in patterns that we don't really realize we're doing. We have habitual patterns. So this set is going to be very, very good to break habitual patterns of tension and to awaken these pathways in the body, you know. And so what's great about the retreat is the fact there's going to be a mindfulness session in the morning for people. This is going to be facilitated so that people can then, even before they get to me, they can kind of prepare and calm their minds. So it's kind of like it's a nice springboard for the rest of the retreat, for the work I'm going to do. And then, of course, you've got what interests me is this immersive retreat approach, and something I've been looking at myself. And it's amazing to be asked to be a guest in your inaugural retreat, because you've got these other things on offer as part of the retreat. And then you've got some extras that people can take if they get excited with the work. And so anything that supports you to get into a more, what I would basically, into an alpha state, into a healing, a health, creative, inspired mode of consciousness. Anything that helps that is great. So what you've got really, so that the retreat is not, it's me plus you have extras, so you can immerse yourself to enhance the Qigong and vice versa. So the things can work in as an entourage. So this entourage effect to help people to make some little changes and breakthroughs, or to make a first step in a process of changing from, a startled state, a held state, or identifying things that are impeding them. And so I think the retreat is it's fantastic. I mean, it's a great place. I've taught retreats for many, many years, and I think it's great to have all of the aspects of external treatments and modalities and machine modalities and technology to back up the internal work. I think it's a great balance.
It's to help you get the different forms of subtleties and stillnesses that are available there. Not when in meditation or in Qigong. Like, one of the things you're going to be using is pulsed electromagnetic therapy, hyperbaric chambers, flotation tanks. Those are all there to help you get over some of your central nervous system issues that may not let down. I see David has made it back. David, are you there? Through your traffic. We cannot hear you. Oh, I know. I got the double hands in the air.
I think his mouth is full.
No, he's talking. Just can't hear.
Is that better?
There we go. Perfect.
So, hi everyone.
How you doing, David? It's been a traffic busy day for you, running through.
It's Toronto's International Film Festival. ran into that traffic. Very interesting.
So, David, we've been talking about the retreat that's coming up in Barbados and how all the extra technologies are going to be applying to the mindfulness and stillness training and Qigong practices that Chris is going to be teaching.
Oh, we're very happy to have Chris come down to Barbados. Okay. I see somebody in the chat asked, what are the extras? Well, the extras are, we have a massage therapist on hand. We have pretty much all the modalities that are in the clinic. They're going to be there on hand as well. We have a massage therapist. We have nutrition lectures. Okay. We have a number of things, and we have a forum discussion with Chris, myself, and Bancroft, and we are pretty much giving these extras for free, and some of them are costed, but you will get more information as we go along. But we're really excited to have him come down to our little rock in the middle of the sea and do Qigong with us.
That's a pretty good rock you got there.
You mean the otherwise?
Technically, it's not. It's limestone. One big coral reef.
No.
So the retreat is going to be from the 9th to the 11th of November, or the 9th.
From the 11th to the 14th.
I did it wrong. 11th to the 14th of November.
It's in October.
October or November?
It's the 11th to the 14th in October. It's at Naniki's. I think Robert is going to drop an ad on your break to let everyone know what's going to happen.
I think the ad says November.
The ad does say November. It has not been corrected yet, but it will be.
Okay, so it's in October, 11th to the 14th, and yeah, so we're very excited about it right now.
And that will only be $2,000 signs you up to be a part of this retreat. So you can contact info@unifiedhealthsystems.com to find out more. If you're interested in coming to the retreat, you can also contact Michael at mpa@galactichistorian.com. We're opening this retreat up for the specific purpose of giving people the best shot at health, wellness, mental, spiritual, physical, social, all the other things that come with it, because we are sponsoring this unique model here for you guys. So I think let's go on our break now, Robert. We are a little over here. Let's go do our break, the trailer for Naniki, and then we'll come back and we'll jump more into what's going to go on in the retreat.
Hello, my name is Chris Ray Chappell, and I'm going to be teaching in Naniki, Barbados from the 11th of October for 3 days, an intensive on Hunyuan primordial Qigong. This is a classical energy work set, which is primarily meant to open up all of the energy pathways of the body and to actually get you into your essence. Now, the idea of this set is it's going to open every single joint, muscle, every bit of connective tissue, the sinews, the organs, the spine, access the blood flow to the brain, creating a homeostasis. Now, Qigongs classically are meant for either health, power development and strength, and often for meditation. So The application of this set is broad ranging. So I'd like to welcome you there. Hope you can make it for the 3 days. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy teaching it and sharing what I have to see who turns up. So I'd like to see you there. Thanks very much. Bye.
Baby steps for adults, drug abuse. What is drug addiction? Am I an addict? Who does drug addiction really harm? They can hurt your sense of judgment, decision-making, memory, and ability to learn. They can hurt your loved ones and so many others around you. Drug addiction is a disease which can be cured. Our Baby Steps program can provide the information you and your family need to overcome this illness. Online access to professionals working in the field of addiction, webinars and group counseling for those battling this addiction, full instruction to help you first understand this disease and how to cope with it. Join us today. We're here to help. Baby steps for adults, codependency. I can't live with or without you. I just want to look good for you. I would do anything for you. All popular words to famous songs. But guess what? They all indicate someone in a codependent relationship. Codependency is an addiction to another human being. You will see a strong relationship between codependency and negative physical side effects, which can manifest in violence towards your spouse or partner. If you're in a codependent relationship, you may need help. Join us today and free yourself from this addiction. Baby steps for adults, sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is a real problem in our societies. Every year, thousands of children are abused. These children constitute the most vulnerable members of our society. However, sexual abuse is also a real problem among our adult population. It can be violent and unwanted within family groups, as well as extreme harassment at the workplace. We can help. With online access to trained professionals working with victims of abuse and sexual assault. webinars and group counseling for those suffering from the trauma and struggling to make sense of their lives. Full instruction to help you overcome the trauma and how to detect and assist other victims. Protect yourself and your loved ones. Join us today. Baby steps for adults, communication. Hey there! Are you reading this? Do you understand me? Oh, great! Then we're communicating. So what is good communication? Expressing exactly how you feel. Being personal and one-on-one. A simple touch or gesture of love. And what is poor communication? Screaming and shouting. Belittling others. Violence or verbal abuse. Would you like to learn to be an effective communicator? Join us today. Oh, bye now. Baby steps for adults, alcohol. Are you or someone you love a victim of alcohol abuse? What are the signs which determine the beginnings of an alcohol addiction? Temporary blackouts, finding an excuse to drink whenever you're relaxed or just to celebrate, drinking alone or in secrecy. Our Baby Steps for Adults class has the answers you seek and the methods of dealing with this difficult disease. We offer online access to professionals working in the field of addiction, webinars and group counseling for those battling this addiction, full instruction to help you first understand this disease and how to cope with it. Join us today. We're here to help.
I've disappeared.
And here we back. All you got to do is turn back your video on and you'll be back, Chris, there in a second. Welcome back, David, through your journey through festivals and traffic. And here you are today.
How are you, Andrew? How are you, Chris? Is Chris around?
Yeah, I'm here.
All you got to do is turn on your video. It'll be the bottom left where it says your video.
It's bottom left. Start video.
There you go.
Oh.
And look at that. There you are. So David has had his adventure through traffic, and now we're here to talk about this retreat at the Naniki facility, combined with our unified health systems. David, why don't you give people how the two sides of these are going to meet, how the technology is going to meet together with the Qigong? and the mindfulness practice.
Okay, so wow, how much time do you have? Let's try it this way. We have hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That would match with your breathing techniques. All breathing techniques, what they try to do, traffic, not Walmart. That's funny.
I must add, in the comment section in the last video, we have a train of comments of people asking about how your Walmart journeys are.
Oh, they don't want to know about that. So basically, this is what's happening. All breathing techniques, whether they be yoga pranayama, whether they be traditional Chinese breathing techniques, they all hinge on the aspect that you're trying to bring as much oxygen to the individual cellular structure as possible. Okay? So for those of you who don't know how important oxygen is, it basically oxygenates and keeps your cells alive. What does that mean? It's like food for the cells. So Qigong is actually multifaceted exercise form. Like Hatha Yoga, it not only works on the major muscle groups, bones and sinews or whatever else, it also works at a cellular level as well. What is hyperbaric oxygen therapy? Delivering enough oxygen and raw oxygen to the body's cellular structure under compression. So the two are actually married in that way because the end result is the same. Okay? You're trying to deliver as much oxygen to the body cells. They live longer, they live healthier, and they pretty much reproduce a lot easier when there's an adequate amount of oxygen being delivered to them. Okay, we have lots of technologies here, but most of our technologies were based on the concept of how healing sciences actually help individuals. For instance, we have a Lucia light therapy. Okay, so I'm a hypnotherapist, so I could pretty much give you an idea. Everyone in the world requires a certain amount of REM sleep to be healthy. Okay, that's why when you're tortured, they take away your sleep. Sleep deprivation, it's not only kills your sense of well-being, it also kills your sense of awareness. It kills your awareness, it narrows it down, first of all, and it also creates a situation where your entire body becomes tired, okay? We have technologies that give people rest, and that's true rest, not rest as in I fall asleep for 10 minutes. We have technologies that give people and the bodies rest, hours and hours of rest in less time. So this is what we're trying to do here. But we're very excited to have Chris here because I actually want to try Qigong myself. I want to see how this basically Chinese-based system, I would like to see it because I'm also a yoga practitioner and I would like to just compare the two as well. So Chris, have you done yoga yourself?
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago, but yeah, I've done some Tibetan Yantra yoga, but many years ago I did Shivananda yoga in London. And I'd actually considered becoming a teacher many years ago, but I kind of, so I kind of plumbed for the Qigong side rather than the yoga side. But the thing is that I think the thing for me with yoga, why I didn't choose yoga was probably because it was too much, it was too close to performance. I mean, in the sense that I was a classical dancer, so not all yoga positions, but I found that I could do it, but also that it wasn't quite giving me what I was looking for. But then again, I think you have to, if you're going to do yoga right, and you back me up on this, I think you have to do everything. You got to cleanse yourself. You got to do pranayama. You got to do the kriya, the whole yogas. It's a whole thing. It's a whole package.
So you need to be a yogi.
Yes, there's an old joke in the yoga community about doing half a yoga.
Half.
Okay.
There's an old joke in the yoga community about doing half a yoga. Yeah.
I've never heard that before. That's good. Alpha yoga. That's great.
It's when people concentrate on the physical aspects of yoga. I've heard statements like, it keeps me fit and trim, right? And they don't meditate, they don't do the pranayam, they don't do kriya, they don't do these things. So,
or it builds the backside like Jennifer Lopez. That's
I remember that movement.
Yes.
Yes, it gives me what was that? Yoga butt. What you remember yoga butt?
Yeah, yoga butt.
That was hilarious. That was very hilarious. Well, I'm glad to see that Qigong has not had little offshoots like Qigong, but that would absolutely upset you, wouldn't it, Chris?
Well, you know what? That just upset. You know what? Actually, if someone said, look, Qigong, if you do soft squats and Qigong gives you killer butt and thighs, that would really bother me. What really bothers me is when it becomes pseudo-spiritual and mystical. That bothers me because that's more dangerous. Actually, that's more dangerous than the do I look good? That's like mild compared. I think the mistakes you can make with your body physically, like, you do it because you want to compete or you want to look good in tights or whatever. It pales into significance if you're on a pseudo-spiritual gig, because if you trapping your mind in that delusion is worse. I mean, getting hung up on your body is one thing, but getting hung up on your on some pseudo idea is not too good.
Yes, on your own hype, I understand. So you used to compete as well in martial arts, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so how did your practice and actual competition work together?
You mean with Qigong?
Yes, how can it make a martial artist a better martial artist?
Okay, well, there's lots of things can make your martial arts good. But what made my performance better was standing practice. I always tell people this. I learned to stand better, and through that, I identified my some of my blockages, which were I didn't recognize, and because of that, because I could feel these restrictions, it allowed me to mitigate the problems and the tensions within within competition. Certainly when it comes on stage, I mean, really, I didn't really come to understand the applications of Qigong and athletics. It was from my well, I was still kickboxing, but really when I started doing Qigong, I just was into my ballet career. So and I started with Tai Chi and then later developed more of a Qigong practice. And it just made everything much better, much more functional. It made me a better me to be able to perform. But of course, the question arose when I did that was I had more questions. So I was a bit too curious. So I kept on having more questions as to, well, how does it work, and why does it work? Why is there so much mystery around it, and how the hell can you fight while moving slowly? Because you can. And it took me many years to kind of work out these questions, and I had to find teachers who could manifest those skills, and they're few and far between. Yeah.
Excellent.
So Qigong, the aspect of Qigong is actually helping you to identify what your limitations are and be honest and be the best that you can be with what you've got. And, sometimes the best you can be with what you've got is better than the people that strive and compete and, do anything to win, to get by, I think it's better to be honest with yourself, and then life pans out the way. At least you feel good about what you do.
Understood. And what has Qigong done for your mind, your awareness, your mental acuity?
Okay, I can answer that really clearly. Qigong.
The irony, you can answer that clearly because, okay.
these internal practices, I always wanted to work on calming my mind. I wanted to kind of get a calmer emotional mental state, and get that kind of a focus. And I found that sitting meditation, I couldn't really hack sitting meditation. But I found that through Qigong that I could then learn how to get comfortable standing and do standing meditation. And then from that, I've then come full circle, and now I'm doing sitting meditation. So it was a way in to the mind. It was a way in for me. So what set me on the path to practicing internal arts was the fact that I found that I could access my mind. I could bypass my critical noise by going through the body, and then finding stillness within the body, and then it gave me confidence to approach my mind. That's what it gave me, and that's why I stuck with it.
Have you noticed any changes between your interactions with others from your practice? You've been in this for a while, so does it change the way you interact with other people?
Yes. I'm not as reactive, and I'm not as how can I put it? I don't bottle things up. Mm-hmm. So that was a major thing, was actually accepting my emotional state, which I was, mostly we kind of walk around with our facade of what we want people to think mm-hmm. of us and what we really think of ourselves. And so it gave me, it was a catalyst. The internal practices it was a catalyst for me to have the confidence to ask the harder questions and to face the harder questions about what I was what I was presenting to the world and what I really felt. And I think this is a common thing for people. And I do like it when I can get into a space and kind of transmit, certainly when, within the teaching context, to try and transmit a felt sense of release, because I know I can bypass, because you can talk all day long, but an ounce of action and feeling is worth a ton of words. So.
Excellent. Excellent. And when did you decide to become a teacher?
I decided to become a teacher because I'd gone through, my career was, I'd gone through working with classical ballet company. I've done some contemporary, some fringe work, and I knew that my body was, I knew I had some issues still in my body. And if I got to where I wanted to, I'd have had to retire by the time I was 36. Because my body something was going wrong inside my body. So I identified that. And then I was an actor. So I produced plays, produced plays, I acted in some plays and did some stage work. I fight directed some movies, tried to get into the business. But of course, as you well know, the business, that kind of business is precarious. And to make a living is not so easy. Because you're at the beck and call of agents and people, and so I decided that I would increase my study. And then one day I woke up and I just thought, you know what, I want to do what I'm really interested in, and to be quite honest, what I have control of. So I plumbed to go self-employed and dedicate myself to researching and practicing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've done, research and practice. And I just pass on what I know. If I get my own personal practice, I get some insights, then I just pass them on to my students, to help them. And so I started teaching. It was a natural progression. To be quite honest, I didn't want to be a teacher. I much prefer to be a practitioner. The thing is, you can do a performing profession, but if I'm teaching people and I can make a living teaching and helping people, then there's a good balance, but there's a nice balance in teaching. So it's kind of grown on me, because I didn't know whether I'd make a good teacher, because I mean, I've not been known for being the most patient of people, because I kind of, in the past, I was quite, how to put it, I'd expect a lot from people. I had high expectations of what they could do. And so I kind of push people. So I think now I have a level where I can really look at the person and see where they're at, and then attempt to do my best to teach them to their physical, mental state at that moment. So I do enjoy teaching.
Okay, in our last discussion, we had a very interesting discussion about what MMA has done to traditional martial arts and the ethic and the ethos behind it. Qigong seems to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I suppose I want to delve a little bit more into that, because I have seen the practice, and there is a definite air of humility around the practitioners of Qigong, which I find which is completely different from a lot of other, even in the yoga community, we have a little bit of arrogance and pride being thrown in there. Mm. But I am very impressed that the Qigong community has seemed to have kept as its core humility in practice, discipline, and so on. So in terms of the dedication that it takes, clearly other forms of martial arts, whether it be MMA, which would be the opposite end of the spectrum, which is very intense and very rugged, and there's pressure to become the best that you can be through force. How does that compare with regard to the discipline required to do Qigong?
Okay, well, it's interesting. Well, to discipline to do Qigong, okay, okay. MMA is really, it's trauma for entertainment, and it's extreme. There's a lot of things about extreme martial arts that or martial sport that I think is too close to extremely violent encounters on the street, of which I'm no stranger to. So I've been in the ring, I've been in the street, so I kind of seen both sides of the coin. I don't like either of those things. I think martial discipline is a way for you to deal with your and channel and develop your character traits, and to develop your character traits, and to help you to grow. So a martial, and the skill and using skill is something that takes time. So you can, the cage thing to me is it's a very interesting phenomena, but I think it could do with a lot of I don't know. I think that's too extreme. And Qigong is it is the other kind of the spectrum, because Qigong in general, the Qigong I actually teach has what's called a Neigong aspect to it. Okay, so I am conversant in the power mechanics of Qigong, and then Qigong in general. I think people. I think people they're very well-meaning, and they're very, very relaxed, and they tend to, because they work with their body in a very soft way. Working your body in a soft way, in a subtle way, it smooths out a lot of these ego issues. It's not that they disappear, just it smooths them out. And even Tai Chi does that. Tai Chi will smooth out a lot of ego stuff.
What does Neigong?
Nei means internal. Mm-hmm. So chi means breath, and is quite often translated as energy, because breath is energy. Oxygen, we get energy from oxygen. So Qigong is like energy work, and Neigong is internal work. So Neigong is the ability for you to train a depth of stillness where you can put your mind into any part of your body and you can make it move. In other words, you get conscious control of things that are normally not meant to have control over. you make voluntary, which are involuntary. So there's that aspect, and so that's a Neigong. Tai Chi is more a Neigong, but in terms of the Qi idea, the idea of Qigong and awakening all the energy of the body, then it would be considered an advanced form of Qigong. So the terms are actually interrelated, and Tai Chi and Qigong, there are hundreds of different Qigongs. There are not that many different styles of Tai Chi. There are several styles of Tai Chi, 5 main ones, and then you've got subsystems now, and people making up systems. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, it did. So we have a lot of people who are metaphysically inclined or spiritually inclined, and I would just like you to give us a little bit of an idea of how practicing something as an energy martial arts or an internal martial arts can actually help people who are meditators, who are on that sort of path, become more sensitive or adept at what they do, because discipline is something that is clearly useful in all aspects of life. But for somebody who wants to become a meditator or whatever else, and they want to get gateway into what we a different path than the beaten path, what would you suggest, really?
Well, Qigong is known as a support, as a foundation for spiritual practice, and it's really good to know, and just to put the information out there so that people can kind of listen to this and judge for themselves. But I've been in the game for a long time, and I've studied meditation with some great masters. And the Qigong it's not a spiritual practice. It's a support for spiritual practice. Now, traditionally, if you go back to the Shaolin monastery, so you go back to when Dalmo came from India, and he developed the Shaolin system. He noticed that the monks were all very weak. They'd fall asleep. Their practice wasn't very good. They couldn't meditate well. So he gave them exercises that became, to strengthen their body. So that was a support to help them to meditate. It doesn't mean that that was a spiritual practice. It means that, a spiritual practice, to define a spiritual practice, if one can, you can say that it is a practice that transforms the mind and emotions so that you feel more connected with the human beings and have more compassion.
Excellent.
And so that will be definitely spiritual. So just by doing a Qigong, what you're doing is you work with your body and your energy, which will affect your mind because of the link. It will affect your consciousness, but it doesn't make you, it won't just magically make you like people. Because your spirituality only lasts as long as until someone smacks you full in the face. Then where's your spirituality go then? I mean, reality kicks in. So Qigong is not a spiritual practice, and Tai Chi is not a spiritual practice. It's very much in the world out there and on the net and the world of the web. People like to push it as that. It's kind of disingenuous to say it's a spiritual practice, but it doesn't mean that you can't become spiritual or you're not spiritual already, because we're all spiritual beings anyway. So it's a support to open you up to that potentiality of change in yourself. So that's Qigong's a great thing for that, and it shows in people. It shows. I mean, I've been teaching in hosting retreats in a monastery for the last 20 years. And in the monastery, I'm well known. It's the first Tibetan monastery in the West, in Scotland. And over the years, it's been interesting to see how my groups of people who I'm teaching, how they're received in the monastery. And the comments that have come back, because I now know quite a few people who work in the monastery, and quite often you get the comment of, it's really interesting how chilled out and how relaxed your people are, and And it's a bit surprising coming from people that work in a monastery, because you kind of assume that everyone's chilled out, right? But the thing is that when people come, and I think it's an aspect of that when people work with the body in a really focused way, it just calms the mind. In other words, you can get meditation by default, and also you can become a nicer person by default. So in that sense, you could say, well, it has a spiritual impact, but it wasn't by design. They're side effects of a good practice. I think a sign of a good practice is that other things manifest. You get these little eurekas moments, or you get these little surprises where you go, do you know what? Today, this guy's in my face. This person's bullying. Do you know what? Let it go. And that's because you created that space, because of that emotional stability you get from having a body that you can live in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let me just redirect your attention to the Barbados retreat. So you're going to be teaching a set, as the ad says. You want to tell us more about it?
Yes, I'm going to teach the core mechanic. I'm actually going to try and get to the essence of the set, so that the thing is, if you learn a really good classical system, you pretty much can do any qigong. I mean, you can pretty much work out what's going on in any qigong. So I'm going to teach how to release blockages, how to create stillness through standing, then how to express through movement and through intention, how to express your energy outwards, and also to express your energy back in, because people, we sometimes get, due to our psychological makeup and our character, we tend not to be able to accept things and bring things in, and then sometimes we try and force things out, or we have a problem expressing ourselves outwards. So I'm going to be teaching all the classical qigong aspects of how to open up the 3 major energy centers within the body, within the central channel, and also how to activate the central channel and to ground your energy. Then we're going to learn how to clear, and which is a process of how do you create clearing, how to create an alpha state through movement, an alpha state of mind. It's that space between waking and sleep, but you're not going to be asleep, you're going to be awake. And then how to open and close. In other words, how to basically expand your body. And there's some unique things in that within Qigong, which I'm afraid I'm going to understand it. You have to feel it. It's not something you can see. So you're going to have to put your hands on me to be able to feel what I'm doing. And that's the best way to transmit the knowledge, is by feeling. And then how to gather. So how to gather, how to clear, how to open and close, and then how to combine all these aspects of movement to just to create much more stability. So that's really going to be the focus of the retreat.
Okay, so we're talking about the slow moving Qigong practice. So whenever
it can be, just as an aside, it can be slow and medium and slightly quicker, but not fast.
Understood.
Okay.
So I think in the West we have an idea, because we have an idea that exercise should be impactful and hard and rough, and there should be sweat and pouring gallons of sweat. You've been in that paradigm. You've done kickboxing.
Done it.
Been there.
Bought the t-shirts. Done it. Yeah.
Bought a couple of t-shirts while we're on the way.
Got the injuries. Yeah. Yep. Done it.
So would you like to educate the audience that you can actually get exercise without being broken into many different little pieces and hobbling around the next day?
No, 100%. Look, the idea of an external exercise is one that actually puts you into oxygen debt. Like you said, it produces strain. You're throwing yourself off balance. You're flinging yourself around. Unless you're really good, right? Really good skilled people, actually really top athletes, they do have an element of control and cheat. Of course they do. Great, fantastic. I'm not knocking external practices, the thing is, you don't have to strain to be healthy, and it's not really advisable to push yourself beyond your limits. I mean, exercise is certainly as much as you want, as long as you have the capacity to know when you're doing too much and when your body's not fit for purpose. So the qigong, the qigong is an opposite way. I'm going to teach you how to move your insides, to move from the inside out. In fact, I'm going to teach you both. I'm going to teach you how to move from the outside in and from the inside out. And
yeah, that's actually a very good point you just brought up. You just brought up a very good point, because it's been my experience that when the body is really hot and you're in this intense state of mind, it's very hard to discern because the awareness is not internal. It's very hard to discern when you have overextended yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you find out the next day that something is broken inside. Okay. So that is definitely a benefit of the slow movement. You feel, and the awareness is kept inside your body, and it's a lot safer than I don't know, CrossFit. You remember CrossFit? Is that still a movement?
Listen, that's going to die a death like aerobics did. I think it's got to, because it's again, it's one of these things. It's like it's interesting. Anyone that gets into CrossFit thinking they're not going to come out injured, there seems to be a complete lack of biomechanical knowledge or stability. It's about as far away from Pilates as you could get. So I think it's more an expression of trauma and like an addiction to kind of like just acting out your angst. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why I think this is interesting, because I watched the CrossFit World Championships. Now, from my recall, the person that won it was already a very, very skilled powerlifter or Olympic lifter. And the one that won it used to be a skilled gymnast. So the thing is, that means they've already got a grounding in something to give them a biomechanical knowledge. So it makes sense that someone with a foundational skill would actually win those things. But then you've got these idiots who actually conduct and make up the exercises. And in this video I watched of this World Championship, these guys were sitting in a room who were organizing it, saying, basically, can I swear in this program?
Yes, you most definitely can.
Most definitely fucking can.
So they basically said, no, basically, we're going to invent some fucking strange new exercise. I mean, like ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's all stuff that looks good from when you're looking at someone. It's all vantage point based on concept.
Yeah, and they're gonna rip themselves apart. And what the subtext was, and they virtually said it, which is, let's see how much we can fuck them up, and see who's left. I mean, what it doesn't compute. It really doesn't compute to me.
So it evolved out of some hardcore triathlete warrior camps where all they did was just beat people up if you had no form of endurance.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible, because what happens is it's like it kind of lends itself to to people who want to compete and be aggressive, and it's maybe for some people it works. I really doubt it. I really doubt it. On some level, you're going to rip yourself apart. And I've seen a lot of injuries. I've actually seen quite a lot of yoga injuries, horrendous yoga injuries.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of horrendous. And this CrossFit, I mean, I'm going to demonstrate this. I drove past a CrossFit studio near where my studio was. And there was someone outside who had chains wrapped around his neck with weights on, running up and down the street. And I just thinking, wow, if you fall over, you're going to choke. The strain in the face was like this. This is not good for you. You only want to do that when you need to. Sometimes you might have to go, okay, but needs must. but you don't have to train like that because you're training to an extreme. An extremes break. I looked at it. I can list off most of the top bodybuilders that ever lived. They die between 46 and 53 or 56 years old. If you don't believe me,
this is true. I concur.
A lot of that was from steroids.
Yeah. Well, absolutely steroids.
No, a lot of that is from liver damage, actually, because they take supplementation.
Yeah.
And all supplementation has a byproduct attached to it, which is something that people don't know. When you go into the health food store and they sell you creatine, for those of us who don't know what creatine is an enzyme that your body actually creates, ironically enough. Okay, and you take nitrox and you take everything else, and you figure, I'm going to get swole is the word that they use, right? And so they go into the gym with all of the stuff inside them, and their liver has to process this unnatural stuff. I remember when I used to work at World Gym, there was this school of pain, which is what someone said in the chat. There was a range of products. There was T2, which would make your skin thin so that you could see the muscles more. There was creatine that would push pretty much water into your muscles to keep them, you could beat them a lot more. There was NOx, which is basically pushing more nitrogen type atoms into your muscles for more durability. And some people were on all of that stuff. And there's ephedra and caffeine. You all remember ephedra and caffeine phase?
Oh, yeah.
Still a few people, right? But the mentality that it takes because I think when you're in that paradigm, it's kind of like an addiction that you get into. Okay? Because when somebody like that sees people doing Tai Chi or even yoga, because even yoga has become a gymnastic event, all right, to see who could be the more pretzel-y. So the spirituality has gone out of it. So when somebody who's in a gym setting sees people doing Qigong or Tai Chi or anything like that, it doesn't compute. They're like, but why? I don't see any pectorals. They don't understand that a human being wasn't meant to be like a cow. You have muscles on you that you will never use for too much, okay? So you're basically getting into cow culture, okay? You're basically getting into the cow culture. So here you are at 260, 275 pounds and with 5% body fat on you, and you're just ripe for the slaughter, okay? While your liver is processing that. Most of these people can only maintain this physique for 3 or 4 weeks, but you got to starve 4 months before. So you starve 4 months before you get into competition phase. It got really ridiculous. I remember because I used to judge these kinds of sports. I judged MMA. I judged bodybuilding as well. I judged boxing and I judged kickboxing as well. So I could pretty much tell you especially when you try to make weight, you would know about this, right, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. Where they give you ice cubes because they can't allow you to drink water. So the ice melts slowly and peters down. So you're like on a drip inside your mouth. It gets really, really ridiculous. So when somebody like that looks at people doing Tai Chi and Qigong, they think, this doesn't compute. There are no pecs, there's no deltoids, there's no abdominals. Okay, it doesn't compute. So there's a big question mark that happens in their minds. But I'll tell you something. I used to teach yoga in the gym, and I also used to lift weights. And I remember when I first started teaching yoga in this gym type setting, I will never teach yoga in a gym again. First of all, let's just get this clear. When I first started to teach yoga in a gym setting, a whole bunch of guys who used to lift weights ran into my class. They lasted 1 week.
Yeah.
I have never seen grown men cry so much in my life.
Yeah.
More muscle means more muscle to stretch.
There's no internal strength.
Right.
It's not internal strength. Internal strength is actually how healthy are your organs, And is your spine actually really working as a spine?
And I actually gave them very basic exercises to do. And here is the irony and the joke about it. They were older ladies in my class. One was 60 years old. We were doing a yoga exercise called the tree. It is one of the most basic. It's a balance exercise. You basically stand on one leg for a little while. It's not a lot, but it teaches you to stand on one leg and redistribute your weight. Well, let me tell you what happened. We had a whole bunch of bodybuilders in my class catching cramp. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it. They're like, the thing about it, there was no adrenaline. There was no oomph. There was no pounding music. So in a simple situation where you had to sit in like a horse stance or what we call a horse riding stance. A squat. For like a minute or so, they would break out into sweat because the internal systems could not handle the stillness. And they started to break down. I saw grown men crying in my class. Saying this is the hardest thing they've ever done.
Absolutely.
So please, I want to tell everybody out there, if you're in this gym type setting, when you see these little old ladies going with their yoga mats and so on into the class, respect them, because they may have a lot more strength than you think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not what you got, it's how you use it.
Correct. It doesn't matter. But every day in this class was hilarious, especially when we tried to do box splitting, basically trying to get them to stretch the internal muscles, the adductors, and so on. And there were tears. They were screaming, there was crying, there were tears, while the little old ladies in my class were looking at them like, what's wrong with you?
So who's strong then? Who's got the strength?
Which ironically was another issue. We also did the plank pose. People don't understand, the heavier you move, your body has a particular frame which it works within. You offset that frame by putting, I don't know, about 50 pounds of meat on yourself. And you have to understand that whereas bones may get stronger, bones do not grow. Okay? All right, you don't get muscle on your bones don't grow like muscle. The two are different. Apart from that, when it is that you're doing exercises, if you're not internally aware of what you're doing, apart from the obvious part that you risk injury, you don't realize that you're moving yourself out of alignment piece by piece. Okay? So it's only when you get into a practice like Qigong and Tai Chi, you realize that you have really done yourself a great disservice. Okay?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And then you find that you have to lose the weight that you spent thousands of dollars putting on yourself. Chris, tell us about the alignment with regard to Qigong and so on, because I'm sure you've had guys who've come from intense exercise trying to join your classes. Tell us about that experience.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, I found that doing my certainly, especially my alignment practices, that I did used to own up. I did actually go to a gym and work out, and to my utter disbelief in myself, I actually made myself less mobile because I was in a serious bodybuilding gym. I tend to take on what's there. I kind of join in, which I couldn't because I wasn't on steroids. But I found that what I did find is that I could actually I could align and mitigate a lot of problems, but I still ended up with tendonitis in my shoulders, which took me, by the way, God, it must have taken me 5 years plus to really get some of the deep tension out my shoulders. So the compression you put in your body is immense. So could you reiterate the question for me a little bit? Could you?
With regard to people who are bodybuilders and come from that paradigm, who have really done themselves a disservice in terms of moving hips, spine, shoulders out of alignment. My journey is pretty much like yours, and I can pretty much give you an idea. Let's work by example here. When I was younger and a lot less aware, I wanted to be as strong as I possibly could. It was a self-actualization thing for me. And I learned a very, very painful lesson one day when I was lifting a weight that was heavier than myself overhead while I was sitting on a bench. And what it did, it twisted the bones at the bottom of my spine.
And
trapped them. And I can't explain to the audience exactly how much pain that was, but you can. It's the kind of pain where the weight becomes light as a result of it. You can't scream, you can't do anything. I spent many, many, many months in pain, and the doctor wanted to operate. And you know that when you do back surgery, you're never the same. You're never going to be the same after back surgery.
Never, no.
So I opted to stay in pain. I did use yoga to help me, and it's only then that I learned the power of doing things slowly and doing things with mind, as opposed to trying to power your way through everything through adrenaline. That is a very painful lesson to learn. But the results were that in pulling bones apart using Hatha Yoga, I used it as an internal exercise. I used it as my own form of traction. It was painful. It took a few months, but I stayed in. I bore the pain, and the bones released and the nerves released. In doing that, there were alignment issues that I suffered as a result of that. It's a necessary consequence. So for people like me who have created a different kind of homeostasis, what can Qigong help them with? And
that's a very good question. I have from my experience, I have a specific set of theories on along the lines of what you were doing, which is actually what you accepted was that you were going to try and get your pain, work through your pain, and there's two things there that you touched upon. One is that there's pain that goes in. And get stuck, and you get trauma inside, and then there's bringing pain out, and bringing pain out can be as painful as the pain going in, because you kind of relive the shock, and you've got to try, and you have to kind of coax it, and you have to stay with a regular approach to bringing it out. A lot of people give up on it hurts, so they just stop. And what I've discovered is that this is from personal experience. I've found injuries in myself which have been, I'd say, date back to when I was 15 years old or before. And there's a concept that I use, which is masking tension. You mask injuries, and your body compensates. And so my approach is to actually just get people still and get them to get their mind to go as deeply as possible into their body, and attempting to get as much total relaxation as possible. And then what happens is that these things can start to manifest again. You can relive within Qigong, or certainly within standing meditation practices. I've relived injuries. I was once, I'll give you an example. This is about pain coming out. I was on a 3-week training, and it was intensive, doing Qigong for many, many hours a day. And I had this pain all the fascia in my neck got really tight. And now, this is from slow movement, by the way. This is from slow, gentle movement. And the pain was excruciating. And I just thought, I couldn't understand why am I in so much pain? And so I continued with it. But it was when I was doing my standing meditation that I got a memory. And I got a memory, and I got the whole feeling back. And then the injury, this thing that was coming out, subsided. And what it was, I was in a karate competition, when I was probably about 15 years old, and around that time. And I fought And back in the day, then you fought anyone. You'd fight guys that were 6'2", fourth dans, third dan. So you could fight anybody, anyone that turned up, you'd fight. And this one guy who was, he basically swept me. He swept both my legs, and he had hold of me, and he swept my legs, and I went upside down. I was vertical, and he dropped me on my head. He didn't like control me down. He just dropped me. I just basically went straight on my head, and I just, as you do, I got up and I just continued the competition, finished the competition. Never saw a doctor, and that trauma was stuck. And that was the memory that came out from this injury. And that, now you're talking, that came out in practice, I must have been late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, you can, so a progressive Qigong practice, a progressive practice can, I kind of liken it to like the body having its history and its geology. So you have the ecology of the body. And you can kind of, if you relax enough and your movement's subtle enough, you can actually start to go back through time, so-called time, and then you can unravel. But you have to accept that pain has to come out. So you're gonna, this is the side that no one will tell you about Qigong or Tai Chi. Nobody's going to tell you, hey, do you know what? You might have some old pain come out, and it might be a hard thing to deal with. But that's like saying in meditation, you know, you're gonna meet your shit, your demons. It's like it's part of the thing. And you know what? That's part of the joy of practice is actually getting to that stuff, because that makes your practice meaningful. It's not meaningful if you're just skirting around these things or giving up. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I have an all or nothing paradigm in me, which is something I've always worked with. And I can get a little bit disheartened with practice. Mm-hmm. So anyone can do it. Anyone can do that, but you have to accept that you've got to take the rough with the smooth. You're going to get the good days. You've got times when these injuries, because any injury you have will have an energetic imprint. And sometimes the physical side can open up, but the energetic imprint in the nervous system is still there. And that's what Qigong can help you to get to.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
And what you just talked about relates directly to all sorts of traumas. Somewhere in the body is the relation, be it a mental trauma, physical trauma, spiritual trauma, dream trauma, whatever. It's stored somewhere in the body. And when we're going to use techniques such as Qigong, yoga, we get to achieve those stillness moments in which we can dive deeper into ourselves, experience stillness, experience silence, which is foreign to so many people, what silence really can be for a person. And then we expand silence and we get let go of internal constriction and restrictions, and we find a new inner freedom inside ourselves through that meditative journey. Then that physical journey where we're pushing the body at a slow pace, that's helping us understand our internal balances and how strong our internal organs are. Because as you were saying, those most muscular of the guys couldn't hold up to most simplest of moves because their internal fortitude lacked some form of interconnectedness to the rest of the structure that they were building. Now, as we take the science and the meta-science and the pseudoscience of what is the practice, we become to find our own practice. And Chris, I want to talk to you, over doing this for decades. In a sense, you created your own practice. Much like we talked, there's many different forms, but this isn't just a hybridization, but it's a learning of what has worked. And let's talk about what has worked, which has created this form that you work with.
Well, the form I'm going to be teaching is a classical form, but what I bring to what I like to bring to my teaching is my experience. So when people have have restrictions, or they have something that comes up, or there's some issue, then I can address it. So
it's because you have a myofascial release background. You're a myofascial advanced releasist. You spent years studying how myofascial points affect the rest of the body.
Yeah, and my whole process has been of I went into myofascial anatomy so that I could understand things from a more Western perspective. So that gives me an edge. It does give me an edge, and I know that it gives me an edge because I can actually pinpoint things that in people, because I can sense things in people, I can feel and sense, but also I've got the visual skills to be able to understand biomechanically what works. I mean, I can take apart people's Tai Chi forms to pieces biomechanically.
You could take apart their basic walking. And as we are inviting people to come here, you don't have to come with any martial arts ability whatsoever to these types of classes. You got to learn how to stand correctly, be in your body, and be willing to stand in your body as your own energetic expression, so that the practice can unfold the different layers.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, myofascial release has their own trigger point release, just like we were talking about before, that the Qigong can cause emotions to come up, things that have been blocked for a while. And then we have these myofascial unwinds. What is the difference in the Qigong practice versus on the table where somebody has a myofascial unwind?
Well, there isn't a difference.
That's right. Yeah.
There is no difference. There's no difference between the two things. The thing is, one's a fix-it paradigm. And some people will argue that it's not, because you can get someone on the bed to move. They can move while you're working one layer of connective tissue, and you get them to move their arm or their leg. So that's a kind of semi-fix-it paradigm, is what I would call that. So the thing with so you can do that yourself. You can listen. I'm pretty much my own chiropractor, my own acupuncturist. And I'm not boasting. I don't mean to boast. I've been doing this a long time, and I've made a lot of effort, and I've discovered these things through work, through doing. So I don't say these things lightly, and I'm not saying that anyone can do things straight away. But what you can is you can release fascia using a qigong, using a neigong, a qigong, those formats, and you can release your own. And I'll tell you something that's really interesting. Is that there's no master out there can get his hands right in by the back of your lungs, around your heart. They can't get in there. They can get in the front through your gut, and some people are very, very skilled at getting in the gut.
And it hurts.
But the thing is, there are places that you can't get to with massage that you can get to with very, very intentful. I'm trying to use the word mindful. Intentful movement, because you have to have the intent to and restful attention inside, and you can move places that someone else can't get to, because I've been worked on. I've been rolfed. I've had Thai massage. I've had myofascial massage. I mean, I've had everything done that could be done. And at the end of the day, I find those things fantastic as feedback loops for me. So if somebody presses on something that hasn't been pressed on, hits a point, I can go away and I'll basically then go and I'll go and stand to calibrate what I've just felt, so that I don't lose that feeling. So I use external treatments as a support.
As part of your internal diagnosis process, because it's another form of calibration. It's like having a scale at grams, and you have to reset the tare each time you want to do it. So if you're getting an update from a point being done, you're able to get back on the heel, whatever the point is, and align it through the body. And hey, what did this point just show me? Was it stagnated? Was it full of wind? Was whatever we want to define that journey of naming to claim it.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Naming things, because once you name things, they don't escape you. Once you give it even if the name's incorrect, but I mean, obviously the correct analysis is good to have. Giving you the control to be able to. The key point, I think, is what you're getting at is integration. That's right. Is that whatever you do, you want to integrate into yourself, so that it's life affirming, and it gives you wellness. And so any feedback you get from anyone else is very, very useful, very useful.
So you were talking before about body wisdom. So part of that body wisdom is internal diagnosis system. And what you were just describing here in the last couple minutes is how to access that internal diagnosis system, and using external sources to validate your internal diagnosis system that is built into the body, hardwired into our central nervous system. We just have to pull back the layers of perspective that block us, or create blockages within the meridians that stop a perspective from having access to the total cellular structure of what our conscious entangled beings are doing here on Earth.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you facilitate self-healing. The body, as we know, and I think I said earlier, that it's self-evident that the body is a self-healing system. I mean, we know this, everyone knows this, but I don't think that people really take it. They don't contemplate it maybe deep enough.
It's not an experience they've had to validate over and over again.
Well,
now, I do a lot of medical diagnosis on air, so I've had to access the internal body wisdom of other people to get diagnoses from them. Now, there are very confusing body scenarios that come up because it's one on top of another on top of another. And these are when many traumas are stacked, whether it's through sports injuries, mental health injuries. And when somebody's coming off of many, many stacked injuries, it requires a bit more focus, a bit more determination, a bit more courage, none of which are mystical until such a time you've had that validating moment. What were some of your validating internal moments that might help people who have not had these experiences, but give them an inkling of what it was like before and after?
I mean, one that just comes to mind is just in terms of like in internal tension, which I think came from actually a kick to my pelvis when I was young. But it's basically the connective tissue that I had some in my groin area was actually tissue that should have been like smooth muscle was very tendinous, and it shouldn't have been like a tendon. In fact, it almost felt like a bone, and the pain was quite excruciating. Once I identified that I had that I basically made that a focus of a certain exercise to release and to massage, because I mean, Qigong is an internal massage. You're massaging yourself from the inside out. And what is it valid when you get a different felt state in your body? I mean, obviously these things don't disappear overnight. Some things you find do rapidly disappear. Maybe weeks or months you might get something that disappears. But you have to have the bit of patience, and because it's easy to try and force your way through something. And the Qigong way and the Tai Chi way is that you actually use the opposite. We need more yin. You need more nurturing. But of course, that does depend on the character of the person as well. How to encourage people to you see, it's I think it's best not to have expectations other than that, to have no expectation, but to be willing to go on a journey of self-exploration and to heighten your awareness of what's going on inside your body, and then take that into your life. That is a big aspect.
To also have source joy from it, and not allow internal emotions of shame, blame, and guilt that might mask a blockage that you have to go through to undo the blockage.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, when you're doing practice. I mean, the idea is that you develop a non-judgmental mindset, that no matter what comes up when you're doing practice, and this goes for martial arts too. Actually, it's all I do with martial art is that if you really in a martial art. This is pertinent to Qigong, is that when say you do a practice session, you have unconscious expectations of what you want to be, or what you want, or an outcome you want, and after the session, you may then get irritated with your training partner, or you may, and so it's kind of after the session, that's when you kind of sit back, and then that's the time to get still and meditate and let go of anything that's happened in the session, and that's a yin aspect. You go inwards so that you don't hang on to any of the little neurotic knots that have arisen in your mind and in your emotional stream, because those things are going to affect your movement and vice versa. So in Qigong, it has that ability. You have it. Look, Qigong's nothing magic. It's a tool. It's a tool for you to get control, but you get control by giving up control. That's the whole game of Qigong, is giving up control. It's the whole game of those internal practices, is you let go of it, and by letting go of it, you get control. That's
the more you think you're in control, the more you're actually out of control.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
the more you release the need to be in control and learn to why you have a need to be in control, the more you'll discover how being out of control is a form of surrendering that isn't giving up a form of your authority.
Yeah, it's not at all. In fact, I think it's you gain more strength. I think you gain more strength from that than the other way. You don't get strength. You get a pseudo strength. You get like pseudo aggression, and you build defenses. But the other way, you actually by giving, and it's not giving up either. You're neither retreating, and you're neither going forward. You're simply being in stillness, and that is very vulnerable for people. But that's when you're strongest. And we know this from history, right? People at their strongest. I mean, people come up with the most amazing compassion and acts of generosity and help. Sometimes when they've got nothing and they want to give, in times of war, in times of crisis in families. Sometimes that could be the time when you're feeling at your worst. In fact, if I quote Taoism on this, the Taoists believe that the greatest opportunities we have in life are the obstacles. So in other words, when things go tits up, when things go really bad, that's your opportunity. When you make a big mistake, that's your opportunity. When you get vengeful, that's your opportunity. Everything, all those things are your opportunity to make changes.
Within every moment is an infinite amount of choices in which opportunities can be created, in which there never existed a line of potential before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that potentiality.
So part of living to have your commitment to self-nourishment, self-healing, and maintaining sacred living, it is a choice to upkeep and challenge the self in a growth process in knowingness. You do have to go within, so that no longer needing external gurus to yourself, so that you don't run to your own instant gratification for validation, which is something a lot of people in the Marshall thing make easy. The choice is easy, but change requires the endurance of change that will determine your commitment to the discipline of accepting and giving in your own equal co-creation and non-competition with yourself. You build your endurance and strength each breath you take, each sovereign sleep you have, each moment being a match for your consciousness within to emanate and learn and relearn, not to emulate from others. Once you really understand the message of emanation versus emanation, you can stand in power in yourself. And part of the standing practice that you talked about is truly standing in the power, where you've gotten over the significant health issues and flaws, and you are in that super healthy state. And in that amplified state you're talking about, in which you can grow your consciousness and become an internal, eternal explorer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the further in you go, the further out you can go.
And there are times the more inner you go, the more expansive you ultimately become.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a byproduct of going inner. Well, guys, we have led an incredible show. Chris, David, thank you so much. So anybody that's interested in coming to the retreat that is going to be October 9th, so 11th to the 14th. October 11th to the 14th. So that's Alan in the chat room, Gabe in the chat room, and all those people that message back to me. Go to info@unifiedhealthsystems.com and say, I want to sign up for the Barbados retreat with Chris Chappell. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Any last words, Chris?
Oh, no, thank you for having me. And it's, I'm pretty, I think the Americans say stoked, right? Yeah, is stoked? I'm stoked.
Just a little dated. Just a little dated.
I'm looking forward to doing the thing.
Yeah, the thing.
I'm looking forward to doing that
thing when we stand. Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, forget about it.
Well, Chris, we're very happy to have you, and we're looking forward to it ourselves. I'm going to be in your class for sure. I will see you in Barbados.
Okay, lovely. Look forward to it. Okay.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And we'll catch you this coming Tuesday at 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time for our next Universal Citizens Media live broadcast. All right, take us away, Robert.
Hello, my name is Chris Ray Chappell, and I'm going to be teaching in Aniki, Barbados from the 11th of October for 3 days, an intensive on Hunyuan primordial Qigong. This is a classical energy work set, which is primarily meant to open up all of the energy pathways of the body and to actually get you into your essence. Now, the idea of this set is it's going to open every single joint, muscle, every bit of connective tissue, the sinews, the organs, the spine, access the blood flow to the brain, creating a homeostasis. Now, Qigongs classically are meant for either health, power development and strength, and often for meditation. So the application of this set is broad ranging. So I'd like to welcome you there. Hope you can make it for the 3 days. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy teaching it and sharing what I have to see who turns up. So I'd like to see you there. Thanks very much. Bye.